So, DC Family Fun Destinations. It's a funding opportunity for the purpose of creating and enhancing public spaces or exhibits or activities that'll bring families and visitors back to the district, specifically to the central business district or the nearby commercial corridors, basically downtown DC. Who's eligible for this funding? Nonprofit organizations or associations, and then nonprofit organizations can also partner with people, and we definitely we want the collaborations. The award, the overall funding amount is $7.5 million, and it'll be broken up into awards that range from 250,000 to $3 million. The application itself went live on April 28th. It'll close on June 2nd at 5 o'clock p.m. And the application can be found at obviously DC under the funding opportunities tab. As we go on, those nonprofit organizations, preferably nonprofit organizations that are community or faith-based nonprofits or organizations with placemaking or community development experience, institutions of higher education or oh, excuse me, sorry, institutions of higher education. To be eligible for the funding, you must be registered in SAMS, and you must have a UEI, which is a unique identifier number. So, project requirements. As we are looking to have exhibits or activities or just like enhancements to those public spaces, we're looking at things that have the ability to be permanent fixtures, but if not, it must be at minimum open to the public for 90 days. That requirement, if you're like building something or having an activation, we require that activation, that event, that thing has to be open to the public before September the 30th of 2025. Um, Preference will be given to those projects, those things that are open longer than 90 days, preferably 12 months, or have long-standing permanent presence in the central business districts. Um, every project must abide by the district laws and regulations. It must appeal and be accessible to children and families. Um, you have to have a plan for long-term financial sustainability and maintenance. So if it's something that you're building, something that you think will, like after our funds run out, you have to show us that you'll be able to maintain said project past our funding obligations. Another requirement of the project is that the local ANC for the location to where you decide to, or your vision is to have this space or this exhibit or this activity or this attraction for the families, the ANCs must support it. So we are requiring that you have a letter of support from your local ANC, and you must demonstrate site control. So if it's in a building, if it's, outside, if there's a park, we have to know that that is land, that is a building, that is property that you yourself actually have accessibility and have ownership of or rights to. I'm going to attempt to try to mute the participants, so just mute you guys. There we go. Okay, so on the screen now, you can see a map. The highlighted red area is the eligible geography. Projects must be with defined, like they must be within this defined area. So the ANCs that are covered are ANCs 2A, ANC 2B, ANC 2C, 2F, 2G, 6C, and 6E. Also, if like you're headquartered in that particular A and C or somewhere within that eligible geography, preference will be given to that. There is a website linked that is interactive so that you can put in your address or put in your location to make sure that your specific space or uh, location qualifies, that it actually sits in one of the eligible geographies. Moving forward, let's talk about some of the uses of this grant. So, can you use this grant for rental or leasing payments? Yes, you can. Design and construction services, that's like if you're developing something new, definitely. If it's something that's already here and you're just trying to improve the accessibility or the service or add to it, definitely something that we can use these funds for. You can use them for leasing of equipment, and I mean, we can talk about what that looks like, but leasing of equipment is allowed. Some purchases of equipment, not so much, but the leasing of it is acceptable. And purchases of permanent fixed assets are a thing. So if you were like an amphitheater in a park, something that's going to permanently stay in DC, a park, a linear park like what's in the picture, that would be something that you could use the funds for. And when it comes for marketing and promotion, only up to 30% of the award amount can be used for that. And that also includes like if you're discounting fees to like enter the activity or activation, it can also go towards 30% of the funding can go towards that as well. So while we just discussed things that you could use the funds for, let's move on to things that you cannot use these funds for. You cannot use these funds to offset any federal or district taxes. Like if you owe DC money, you can't use DC money to give it back to us. That goes to satisfying liens or any other type of penalties. And it cannot go to like organizational overhead or debt services. It can't be directly for purchases of food, general operating expenses. It can't go to subsidize any of your operating costs for profit businesses. And you can't purchase real property. So while you could lease a vehicle, you could not buy the vehicle with these funds. Okay, so let's go to how we expect to score the applications once we get them. We will look at your project descriptions, the capacity of the actual team, the budget and the timeline, the economic impact, the appeal and accessibility to the families, and the responsiveness to the community needs. I'm definitely about to talk in some detail about each one of these application sections. So for the project description, we want as much detail as you deem necessary to get us to believe that we should fund your idea. We need to make sure that the location of your proposed project fits within that eligible geography that we discussed earlier. Again, like I said, demonstration of site control is a requirement. So those are things like the deed, a letter of intent, the contract or sale, something that says that you actually own it. If it's someplace where you're leasing a space or like you're in a federal building and it's just like a long-standing agreement, we need something in writing, something signed to prove to us that you have not only been there, but you will continue to be there. Um, the description of the site and the surrounding areas, again, proof that it's within those eligible geographies and what the surrounding area is and how your activation or exhibit will affect that surrounding area. A summary of the project and how it aligns with the overall goals of the RFA, and the scope of work that details the use of the requested funds, and we'll go into more detail about the use of the funds and how we expect you to determine that, or how we expect to see you explain that to us when we talk about the budget and the timeline. So as we get into the who, the what, the how, the application, how the applicant and its team works as far as this project, we want a brief description of not only the nonprofit, but any partners that might be associated with this project. And we want to include, like, we need you to include their mission, their history, um, some type of organizational chart, that so that we can see all of the invested parties and how they fit into the overarching idea that you're presenting to us. We want to know how they contribute to this project. A brief bio of key personnel is also a requirement. And for just the primary applicant, so for the actual nonprofit that is submitting the application, we need your articles of incorporation, the certification of good standing, and your signed bylaws. That does not in We do not need those documents for your partnering organizations, just for the primary applicant who is submitting the proposal. So moving on to the budget and the timeline. So we would like to see the source and use of funding, and that's how you're using our funds. Also, if you have already have funding, how you plan to use your funding as well. We need to see your matching funds, if that's a thing. We want to see the applicable direct and indirect cost rates. Again, we need to know your financial plan for this to be sustainable and maintainable after the funds that are awarded are used or depleted. If this is a permanent fixture, even if it's not a permanent fixture, if this is something that you so happen to run out of your funding from us within, say, the 90 days, what happens after that to make your exhibit or your project or your activation successful? We want to see the District of Columbia support in the past 3 years. We also, if there's any pending or um, so if you're doing construction and you had like permits, licenses, any like public or commission approvals, we need to see those as well. This timeline that you see, it's very self-explanatory, but if you have questions, let me know. Everything, if you are using these funds, again, like I said, the project needs to be completed and open to the public no later than September the 30th of 2025. That is not to say that if, say, you already have something in mind, you're already building on something and it is slated to open September of 2023, and then you are using our funds to keep it going and all the things. Like, the sooner something can open, the better, but it must be open to the public no later than September the 30th of 2025. There are some EDA regulations that you must abide by if you are actually constructing a project, and the link that's in this PowerPoint will give you more information regarding those certificates and requirements, if that so is the case for your project. So, the estimated economic impact of your project. We want to see um, how the how the project impacts DC, how it improves the economy of the district. Is it offering new jobs? Is it creating and retaining a place for DC residents of like low come residents, or persons of low income in those ANCs that we mentioned? Is it giving training and advancement opportunities? Is it letting people that are living and or in those communities or surrounding communities the opportunity to be a part of the project? Um, the commercial real estate vacancy reduction. So say like it's a vacant building and you're popping up an activation in the basement or like the ground level of it, like you're using usable space that already exists in DC. We definitely have empty buildings and we're trying to get them filled, get the people back in the buildings, back in, trying to populate the downtown, the areas. So that's definitely something that we're looking to see. Estimated number of regular visitors is, like I said, we're definitely focusing on getting families and children back into the spaces that the projects could be in, but also what does that look like of getting people coming from Baltimore or Philly or Boston or, the West Coast to come to do the thing that you are proposing, and how that also impacts the economy. So the appeal and accessibility to the families. Again, that's we're trying to make it fun, trying to get the kids and the families back downtown, back in these streets. So is it something that you are charging the residents of DC? Preference will be given to those projects that offer some type of free activities, or some type of plan where the entrance fees are waived or heavily discounted for DC residents, especially if they're like DC public or DC charter school students. Um, free would be the preference, but also depending on what that activation looks like, it might just be a heavily discount of some sort. So we need to see what your plan is for that. Also, responsiveness to the community needs. Because the ANCs are required to give you a letter of support, we hope that you've talked to the people in those communities and see what, like, engage with the people in the community to see what they want, see what their feedback is, make sure that you're checking the boxes to keep the people happy, that it's something that the community actually wants, and it's not like, oh, the people in the areas are going to be dead set against whatever the proposed project is, for whatever be the reason. We're also trying to keep the people happy as well as bring the people back. Moving forward, there are lists of attachments. I'm not going to read through this list, but I will leave this on the screen for a little bit, let you guys look over it. And if anyone has a question or need me to speak to one of these attachments, I will. They're pretty standard attachments, I think. But again, like I said, that's not the case. Just let me know.
Hi, I have a question, but it's not about the attachment, so I'm happy to hold it until a little bit later if that's better.
Oh no, I mean, I can take your question while it's
Okay.
fresh in your mind.
Um, so one of mine is actually about the online application itself. So I've poked around in there just to kind of get a little bit familiar with it on the Grant Cloud. And everything looks great except for the budget report piece of like the online application. When I go in there, it looks like you should be able to add additional lines to the budget. But I swear I've tried a million different ways. I even started a new application. There does not seem to be any way in that budget report on the website to add additional lines to the budget. So should we just put our total cost? Am I doing something wrong? What would you suggest?
Okay, because that is a great question. I'm going to be completely honest. It seems as though, like you said, there should be a way to add additional lines, because I'm not looking at it right at this particular moment. I need to get into the
Totally
system
fine.
and
Yeah.
see to see why it's not working, see if we can just add the ability to make that happen. And tell me your name so I can make sure that I reach back out to you to.
Yes, my name is Megan Dwalrod. I'm from National Children's Museum, and
Okay.
you had kindly emailed me with a link to this. So I'm sure it's just a back end thing, but I
Yes.
can also reach out about it by email too.
Yep. And so if you send me an email, I'll definitely
Okay,
look into it and get back to you. Also, we'll add that question to our frequently asked questions. Good question.
thank you.
Um, I see that Jason is asking, is there a requirement on it popped up, but then it popped away. Give me just a second. So let me see his question. Mm, And Jason, if you want to just take yourself off mute and ask, that would be great too. Mm, mm. Okay, so Jason, I'm going to get back to your question. Let me finish the presentation and then I'll figure out where your question went in my chats. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Where did it go? Jason's question is there a requirement on the age of your organization to participate? I don't, yes and no. We definitely need at least the last 3 years of financial statements. So assuming that you have financial statements that date back to 2020, that is the bare minimum of an age for your organization to apply because you have to have 3 years of financial statements. I hope that answered your question. Great. Um, then just a quick overview again of the timeline. The application itself, it opened on April the 28th. It will close on June 2nd at 5 o'clock. Now, let us be clear on this June 2nd at 5 o'clock deadline. It is the deadline. But when I'm speaking from a place of if it can go wrong, it will go wrong on June 2nd at 4:45, people. The system will crash. You will not be able to upload that last attachment. We say, hey, if you're thinking about applying, let's try to do it, say June 2nd by 3 p.m. Try to give the system at least an hour or two before the deadline because like I said, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong at 4:45. The system will crash, it will be down for whatever the something will happen. So the sooner the better. And I just said 2 hours, if June the 1st at 5 o'clock, just make it seem like it's a whole extra day and then get it in. And if at the last minute there's something that needs to be changed, it'll probably be easier to upload that change at the last minute than at the last minute, the whole thing. But that's just my little tidbit. Please move accordingly how you see fit. But the system will close June 2nd at 5 o'clock p.m. After it closes, there will be an initial screening, a review panel, and a final review. And we hope to give some type of notification in the month of July. People, please, on July 1st, don't flood the emails. Like I haven't heard anything. It's a process. We will notify the awardees when when we can after we've done all our due diligence on our end to make a decision. Then just things to some housekeeping. The application is at obviously dc.com. It's under the funding opportunities tab. It will close again June 2nd, 5 o'clock. But again, let's try to get it June 2nd by maybe 3 o'clock. If you have questions directly related to the RFA, you can reach out to me. Again, my name is Sarita Anderson. My email address is sarita.anderson@dc.gov. If you have questions directly related to grants, please email dmped.grants@dc.gov. However, if I get a grants question, I will definitely pass it along as well, as if I'm sure if the grants team got an RFA question, they'd make sure that I get it. I'm going to keep moving. This PowerPoint will also be online. I'm sure my contact information is online already. Then there's a list of acronyms just in case, some of those acronyms that you saw prior didn't make sense. Again, I'm not about to read through this, but it is here for your reference if needed. And then at this point, I will open it back up to questions that people might have had that didn't ask throughout the presentation. And if I'm not
Hello,
yes,
Ms.
hello.
Anderson. Hi, this is Kimberly Clark. I had a question about the nonprofit piece. Does it have to be like a DC nonprofit, or can it be just, an organization that has the 501c3 status?
It does not have to be a DC nonprofit. However, if you are looking to put this attraction, this thing in, one of the geographical eligible places, you still need to reach out to an ANC and have the ANC back your idea. But you don't have to be a DC nonprofit.
Okay, and then to that, because this wouldn't be a DC nonprofit, I saw you mentioned that you could partner with a for-profit. What does that partnership kind of look like? What are you like? How can a for-profit here in DC partner with a nonprofit? Would you need like a partnership agreement? Would you have to create like a limited partnership or like actually
Awes-
create an entity or?
That is a great question. I Speaking for Sarita, I will definitely get my legal team to give me the specifics on that, but I think just an agreement would be sufficient as to what their partnership looks like. I don't think you need to create anything outside of just like we're partnering on paper. This is what the partnership looks like in relationship to this particular project.
Okay, all righty, thank you.
You're welcome. And again, your questions will be added to our list of frequently asked questions, and they'll be, you know, after legal review, my answer, it'll be posted on the website.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Hello, this is Megan at the Downtown DC Bed. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Hi, we just have a question here about site control. As the bid, we don't generally have site control except for through cooperative management and maintenance agreements. So I just want to clarify that we would either need to partner with someone who owned the space, or we would need to prove that we have site control through those cooperative management agreements, correct?
Yes. And I
Okay.
do believe that the cooperative management agreement would be sufficient.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have another question about site control. Sorry, I've got a lot of these. So you raised a good point about the construction piece. One of these projects that we were entertaining would essentially be a renovation of our space to help drive visitor traffic and provide this free and accessible space. Because we have a long-term lease, there would be a process through which we'd have to go for like review of that construction with the landlord and of course historic preservation. So as long as we detail what that process would be for a construction project and we can prove site control, like yes, we do have control over the space, we own it, we pay for it. It sounds like that would be an appropriate like project or activation that we could submit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And if one more question about site control. So there's other projects that, we'd love to think about too, but they would be like adding space, like leasing or renting more space. And it's definitely a chicken and the egg thing about we would need funding before we could enter into that agreement. I don't think this is really going to be acceptable under the grant, but if we had a letter from our landlord, which is GSA, essentially saying like, yes, if this funding comes through, we promise to like lease this space, kind of a letter of intent thing. Would that be appropriate, or does that not meet the threshold of site control for the purposes of this grant?
An executed letter of intent is acceptable, so that would definitely work.
Okay, and an executed letter of intent. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions.
And then just one last one, I promise, if no one has
Oh
any other.
no problem. No need to apologize. Ask away.
Okay, the length of the grant, I'm thinking through this timeline as well. Right now, this project that we're looking at, we would have pieces of it that would absolutely start very, very soon, but the overall length looks like it would be about 2 years. Is that an acceptable timeline for expenditures for this grant?
Yes.
Okay, great. Last one, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that DC has a list of office buildings or things downtown that were vacant that you would like to see spaces, or you have buildings down there. Is there like a formal list or some way, or any buildings that DC owns that if we want to consider for our projects that we could access to be able to speak to someone about, or?
I'm literally writing down this question. I again speaking for Sarita, would like to think that that list exists. Do I know exactly where? I'm not sure, but I'm adding it to Katie. I feel like
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. So I think that this is an opportunity where sort of coordination with the ANCs could be helpful, as well as the business improvement districts. The Golden Triangle bid and the downtown DC bid are within the eligible geography and usually can have a good idea of some of the, they obviously have good relationships with the property managers in their bid. And so they can also be a resource in terms of identifying vacant properties within the geography. So those are two ideas. And also the Washington DC Economic Partnership. They manage a like a searchable database of vacant spaces. And so I can put the website address into the chat as well.
That would be great. Thank you. You said the Golden Triangle bid and which other bid?
The downtown DC bid.
Okay, thanks.
And also Mount Vernon is also the Mount Vernon Improvement District as well. Oh, we can put those in our frequently asked questions.
I have a question. I may have missed it, but how much is this grant for?
the overall funding amount is 7.5 million. The awards will range from 250,000 to 3 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I hope this isn't a crazy question, but how would a new business, what are the chances of a new nonprofit business qualifying for a grant of this magnitude?
Okay. New business. I think your best bet would probably be to partner with or try to partner with a business that has a little long standing in, I say, at least 3 years, because again, one of the requirements is that you show 3 years of financial statements or like sustainability. So depending on how new your business is, you won't be eligible by yourself. So if we're talking within the last 3 years, you would want to partner with someone who has a little bit of longevity in the game. But if we're talking new business that's like 4 years old and you come with an amazing idea and all your things are executed to a T, you would have as great as chance as anybody else.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And there are no such thing as silly questions, people. I feel like ask them because I'm sure there's someone else on this call who is probably thinking or wanting to ask the same thing. So help someone else out by asking all the things that are on your mind, especially while you have us here to give you the answers to the best of our ability.
Question: when you say partner with an older business as a nonprofit, could that older business actually be a for-profit business, or does the older business actually need to be a nonprofit so that the main application comes from a nonprofit?
The primary applicant, so the person who's hitting the button, that's submitting the button, has to be a nonprofit. So when I'm speaking in your specific case, if you are the newer organization, you need the longer standing organization to be the primary organization to actually submit, because we would need 3 years of financial statements from the primary organization.
Got it. Thank
The link to get on this call. How do I get on the list, I guess, to obtain notifications of these types of calls?
How do you get on the list? You know what? That is an awesome question, because I don't, again, and I'm speaking for Sarita, Katie, feel free to jump in. I would imagine that you got an email from someone regarding this, or did you find it on the website?
I got an email from someone.
So I think the fact that you got the email means that you're on the list.
No. I'm sorry. I got a text from a family member who said, hey, jump on this call. So I want to
Okay.
know, how do I get the same, and excuse my grandchildren in the background.
Oh no.
I wanted to know, how do I, just get the notifications that it's a grant getting ready to be funded. Hey, get on the call.
Katie, can
Yeah,
you speak?
so
There.
yeah, we have a DEMPED an agency listserv. So we sent out the information yesterday about the info session, and typically whenever we have new grants that open, we'll send out an email regarding an email to our DEMPED list. So I can also drop that link to sign up in the chat as well.
Yes, thank you. I would appreciate that.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, hello. I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my first time even the same thing the lady said. Somebody told me about it, and I went on and researched it and found out and logged in. So my question is, okay, we are a for-profit in the District of Columbia, right? So in
Mhm.
order to participate in this grant program, I'm currently registered with SAM, but of course for profit. So in order to participate, I have to connect with a nonprofit organization, although I provide community services to DC residents. And although I'm not a nonprofit, I'm not looking to make a profit off whatever attraction we decide we're going to go, or whatever service we're going to bring to the district. I still would not qualify because I'm not a nonprofit. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a problem.
Well,
Oh,
I understand the frustration. Yeah, but the ability to partner with a nonprofit is very much so a real thing. And if you could find a
I had
nonprofit.
one. Let me tell you just a little bit of background. We started out working with the nonprofit. I'm not going to call their name out, but we started out for nonprofit and everything was going good. When they realized that the type of service that we offer was very lucrative, right? They took
Mhm.
my idea, okay, and bought all this stuff. Oh, we don't know. We can continue letting you lease the space in the basement. That everything was messed up, right? So I had been there for like a year or so, and then well, like I said, they realized it was very lucrative. Then what they did was push us out. Was oh well, we're gonna not decide to lease out the space. We're gonna whatever. So of course we moved to another location some years ago, and then I came back for something because the nonprofit asked me for a question, and I helped them get their license that they needed back in order to provide another level of service. They turned around and got another company, not gonna call their name, that was for profit, that was much larger than us, and end up partnering with them and pushed me out. So you see, my level of confidence in these nonprofits is not what it seems to be. And I'm so upset with them to always do this, because there are a lot of in the newer nonprofits who are willing to offer the services. They haven't been around enough to have financials, right?
Right.
For that 3 years. So yes, I have a problem, because I'm not looking to gain money for this, because this will be part of my legacy to the district. I'm a DC resident, born and raised here. Just moved back to the district, and I want to provide these services. And I can't, because every time the funding comes available, it's for nonprofits. So yes, I have a problem with it, because I don't trust them. Not the ones that were partnered with you, if you know what I mean. So
Totally understandable. And I hate to say, like situational, and I don't want to discount your frustration or what
I
has
know.
happened to you in the past. What I can offer you is that, because this is project specific, that maybe and I'm just going to speak in Sarita's opinion, maybe pray on it, figure out if it's something that you could find in your spirit, that maybe you can go back to this nonprofit if it so speaks to you in for this particular project. Because for this particular project, you definitely need to be a nonprofit organization. You need to have those 3 years of financials, and you yourself, for this for-profit that you are, would not be eligible, but
I
you
know.
could partner.
Ah,
So if for the greater good, you could, grunt and bear the, let's see if we could do it, work together for just this one thing. Maybe it could be a thing, but if not, maybe there'll be another opportunity that you could find that you would by yourself would be eligible for.
yeah, it would be nice. And then one more. My last question is this: just say you partner, and this is the thing, and people need to be very. And I probably should have said this in the very beginning, but some of these nonprofits are much more knowledgeable than I am in this area. But one thing I can say is that when you partner with them and you have a partnership agreement, I think somebody kind of expounded on it earlier or asked a similar question. But when you do that, okay, the agreement, how long are they asking for the agreement? Because let's say if you partner with them in order to get this, and they get my idea, right? And that's going to be more on the legal aspect of it. A lawyer will have to probably end up drawing this up, but just want to make sure they can't take my idea and push me out. That's the question that the district needs to be concerned about. Because if you want us to, for-profit business is a profit with non-profit business, we're going to make sure that we protect our for-profit businesses as well, and the non-profit. Because are you asking for a certain amount of years that they need to stay connected for this to work? You're saying you're talking about 2 more years down the line. What if it's something you have it and they get approved, and then something happens and either party leaves out? What is going to be? Because there's going to be some legal issues about that. And I'm just putting that out there because I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but I can imagine. We're human. People do things.
Right. No, that's not something that I feel comfortable giving an answer to. I can definitely note your concern and try
Right.
to get our legal team to give me an answer.
And I can give you my email in the chat, so you can I'm really concerned about that. That's a huge
Okay.
concern.
Actually, I'm gonna do you one better. If you don't mind voicing your concern, like if you send me an email, like in
Sure.
my email, yep, just ask your question via, like, send it to me in an email, and then I'll pass it on to our legal team.
Okay, let me write your email down because I was away. I had the phone on on speaker when you were talking. What is your email?
Katie, can you add it to the chat for me?
Okay, add to the chat so I can snapshot. That would
Yep,
actually
there we
be
go.
wonderful. Let me go to the chat. Okay, hold on. How do I don't even, I'm on my mobile device. Chat with everyone. Will it be there? Okay. You're gonna add it to the chat now.
I am. I'm asking my colleague Katie. Can you
Okay.
add my
All
email
right.
to the chat for me?
Because
There we go.
but
You forgot the S,
understand my
love.
point.
I do, Katie. There we go. Look at it spelled right.
Okay, let me see. Which one are you? Okay, there are two. I'm going to snapshot both of the emails.
It's
she left
it's
me.
Sarita. She forgot the Y. It's SYREETA
Hold
dot
on.
Anderson.
I gotta go back and hit it again. It's
YREETA dot
SYR.
Anderson. Mm-hmm.
SYRETTA. But everything else is good.
It's
Dot
two E.
Anderson.
Yep, it's 2 E's, 1 T.
Yeah, I
Maria,
have
you
it. I
should
think
also, do you want to flip back to that slide?
Oh yeah,
she
and I
did.
yep,
She
I
hit
sure
it.
can.
She
I
corrected
can.
it.
There we go, and I can put my info back. There we go. It's back on the screen for everybody to see it.
Okay,
And,
great.
and
I have
Jason,
it.
I'm sorry. I see that you're asking questions. They're popping up, but they're also disappearing. Katie, can you tell me what his questions were as I try to find it again in my chat?
Yeah, I'm still not totally sure that I understand his question. Could a for-profit entity use a fiscal sponsor to be the primary applicant? So I think, so
Okay,
basically
I'll
what,
clarify.
okay,
Okay.
Sorry about that. What I was asking is, as a if you're a for-profit business, I know you said it sounds like you could use a fiscal sponsor or a nonprofit to serve as a fiscal sponsor to do the application for you. Is that right? Or they actually have to be a part of it? They can't just run your financials.
no, yeah, so the nonprofit applicant, the primary applicant is going to be the one who is the main entity responsible for executing the project. And so, yeah, they can't just sort of be like involved in name only. They're really, because they're going to be the one with whom the agreement is with the district. They're going to be the one who is handling all of the funding, and that, like, they can certainly contract with nonprofit entities, but they're going to be the ones who are holding the agreement with the district. And so they're the primary project implementer.
Okay, thank you.
So excuse me, to piggyback off his that the answer to his question, answer to the person's question it just asked, you said that the nonprofit will hold the agreement with the District of Columbia. They'll be in charge of all the budgeting, and they'll be charged to provide whatever required documentation that needs to be provided to the district. So that kind of brings me back to the agreement between if there is an agreement, the nonprofit would not be held liable. The for-profit would not be held liable because we're just doing a partnership with the nonprofit.
Exactly.
Okay, so that kind of answers my question a little bit. Okay, thank you both. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if, like, we started a nonprofit a while back, and then we're missing one fiscal year out of the past 3 years. Would we be disqualified? So say, like, we don't have financials for 2021, but we have it for this past year in 2020.
Just random question for my own edification. Why wouldn't you have the in between? Because I feel like maybe not having 2020, like 2020s. What happened that you don't have 2021s?
The nonprofit kind of went stagnant for the year, and then we kind of reactivated it this past year.
Also, going to write that one down because I think the requirement is last 3 years. If I can't speak to whether or not a missing year is the equivalent of just no fight. I'm going to write down the question and put it in our frequently asked questions. And if you don't mind sending me an email as well with your questions, I'll make sure that we get an answer back to you outside of just adding it to our frequently asked questions.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. David, it looks like you might have been speaking. I'm not sure if you were actually saying something, but I couldn't hear you.
Oh yeah, that was my only
Oh,
question.
that was you. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? All right, going once, going twice. There are no other questions. I think we might wrap up this info session. You guys have my contact information. I'll definitely respond with answers to those questions from the individuals who are asked to send emails to me. Like I said, we do have a list of frequently asked questions that will be uploaded to the website hopefully tomorrow. Need to make sure that we get legal to vet the answers first. But if there are no other questions, it's been great spending this afternoon with you. I hope to see some of these awesome applications come through the system. And if in between now and June 2nd, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to get your answers to your questions.
Sorry, I do have one last question. If
All
you
right.
don't spend all of the funding, all of the 7 million, does that mean that they'll reopen the application? Or, I mean, just in case you don't have enough applicants or something like that, I don't know. Will you reopen it and spend it again, or it gets lost, or will it be open next year, or how would that work? And sorry, my name is Kendra. Sorry. It says Jason, but it's Kendra. Sorry.
Kendra, okay. I was so confused. I was like,
I know.
Jason sounds
We're
like
laughing over here in the
Kimberly. I don't
background.
know. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, Kendra. Um,
Sorry.
I
I
can come in,
think
Sarita.
there we go.
Yeah, so yeah, if we don't get enough strong applications for the full 7.5 million, then yes, we would consider opening up another round next year.
Okay, thank you. I'm done now, so we can wrap up. I'm sorry.
And if there are nobody else, all righty. If that's the case, I'm going to end the recording.